There's about a 9-second difference, shot clock and game clock. Gilgeous-Alexander spins, pulls up, jumper. Off the mark, won't go. Rebound, Nesmith. The Pacers with a chance to win it. Final seconds, no fouls to give. Halliburton looking. Halliburton driving, pulls up, jump shot. It's good! It's good! With 0.3 of a second remaining. Timeout, OKC. Tyrese Halliburton does it again. Their first lead of the game. This crowd absolutely stunned as the Pacers take a 1-point lead.
Hey, y'all. On this segment, we have Bryan Toporek from Forbes to talk basketball, talk about the NBA Finals and looking forward. Obviously, if you're a Sixers fan like myself, hasn't been much to cheer for quite some time, but there are some things to look forward to potentially in the summer. The Pacers, just jumping right into the NBA Finals, Pacers stunned the world, didn't lead for a second until they did lead in game one. Then the Thunder do what everybody expected them to do and storm back in game two and won by 16 points. Some of our listeners won't hear this until after game three, but kind of what is the theme? We got a 5-game series left to go. What are you expecting in game three and moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the status of Tyrese Halliburton is the big thing I'm keeping an eye on. It sounds like he had a limp after game two. A couple people noted that in the post-game press conference. So he's already been struggling in terms of asserting himself offensively. Game one, game winner notwithstanding, but really did not get going until the fourth quarter of game two. So if he is physically hampered in any way, going against that hellacious OKC defense, I think it's going to be tough for him to get going. And I think, they're going to want him to get going more as a scorer, not just as a passer. So I'd say that's the big story going into the game three. Of the series so far, I think the fact that OKC went into the series changing their starting lineup, benching Isaiah Hartenstein, moving Cason Wallace into the starting lineup. The coach after game one said basically they wanted to do that to give them another perimeter option to throw at Halliburton and Andrew Nembhard. I know he caught a lot of flack for it after game one, after they ended up blowing that big lead late on. But then he sticks with it in game two, and they, jump out to a double-digit halftime lead and cruise to a comfortable win. So I think all of the criticism ended up being a little hasty.
Yes.
But I mean, to some extent, that's what makes OKC so great, is that they have the versatility to play small, play big. They just have a bunch of different options that he can throw at you. I mean, they went, they played 11 players in game one. Like Kenrich Williams played 1 minute and Jay Mitchell played 3. So, not effectively they played 9, but, we got like a big Aaron Wiggins game in game two off the bench. Alex Caruso has been phenomenal throughout the playoffs, but had, I think, one of his highest scoring games probably of the season in game two. So they can throw these waves at you that Indiana, we saw a big Obi Toppin game in game one. TJ McConnell has been like a nice steady presence, but we're probably not going to get that type of impact scoring off the bench for Indiana. So I think OKC has more outs in this series if you're approaching it from like a poker perspective. They have more outs than Indiana does, but I'm not ruling out Indiana winning at least one more game or even 2 more. Like, I still think they are live in this series. Just OKC is a very deserved favorite right now.
Absolutely. I'm expecting it to go 6. If Halliburton's hurt, though, I mean, the Pacers aren't going to win another game. I mean, I really feel like everything that we're seeing Aaron Nesmith do is found money. They found that in the couch cushions. I mean, he's out here cashing out from 3, hitting nothing like Kobe Bryant threes. I mean, that's not – the Pacers shouldn't expect that. I mean, I know Rick Carlisle would never say that. Like, oh, that's the guy. I know he's a good player. And you mentioned earlier having to contend with Andrew Nembhard. I mean, that's surprising. Nobody planned that as a headline. Like they need to switch up the lineups in game 2 and game 3 of the NBA Finals to contend with Andrew Nembhard. It's just amazing. So to your point, if Halliburton's not going to become more aggressive, then this thing is pretty much over already. I mean, I really don't see a path to them winning more than. Actually, I don't see them winning another game if we keep getting these single digit. Last game, I think Halliburton scored 3 points. Am I wrong?
He was 3 points at halftime, and then went off in the fourth quarter. I think he had 12 points in the fourth quarter, but did nothing for the first 3. Yeah,
but you're setting the table and you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball, and you're only going to be able to make that climb so many times in the playoffs. So.
Yeah, I thought Ramona Shelburne of ESPN had a good story the other day about him, and she went into his relationship with Drew Hanlon, trainer Jason Tatum, Bradley Beal, Joel Embiid, works with Hallie as well, and apparently he's just been on Hallie because he is this pass first point guard archetype. He has been on Hallie to become more aggressive as a scorer. He's saying you are hurting your own teammates at a certain point. Because you are making it easy on the defense. So he would leave orange objects around the house as a message that you need to be more aggressive as a scorer from the jump. So I'm guessing when he gets back home to Indiana, there's going to be a lot of orange all over his house, courtesy of Drew Hanlon. And we'll see. I think it'll be I think he's going to look to set the tone early in game 3. But again, OKC has the personnel with Cason Wallace, with Shea, with Lou Dort, with Alex Caruso off the bench. You could not come up with a team that is better tailored to hamper a perimeter option like Tyrese Halliburton.
And then on the other end, exactly to your point about Halliburton's lack of aggressiveness hurting his teammates, we're facing somebody who's a walking 35. I mean, Shea's just, I think Rick Carlisle said it. He's walking off, he's getting, off the bus, scoring 34 points. I mean, this is nuts.
He's right. I mean, that's just, I think 72 points in the first 2 games of the series combined. And game 1, it took them 30 shots to get there. And I think that's the recipe is you just can't let OKC's supporting cast beat you. Game 2, they got better games out of Caruso, Wiggins, Chet Holmgren as well. Didn't do a lot in game 1, was much better in game 2. So that's where you get in trouble. Shea's going to get you the 30 either way, but if the supporting cast is also going off, you're facing a real uphill climb.
Well, when this long series, I hope, is over, the eyes of the world will turn, the basketball world will turn towards free agency and the trade market. What are you keeping your eye on from a meta perspective, from a 30,000-foot view?
Yeah, I mean, Giannis is obviously the big story. I think no dominoes fall until we get some sort of definitive word whether he wants to stay in Milwaukee or, Shams reported around, it was the day of the lottery, that he was open to considering moving on or something very nebulous like that. Yeah, right, exactly.
Hey, wifey, I'm open to considering an end of our.
Yeah, right. I'm open to considering taking out the trash this one time. That's So the reporting in recent days makes it seem like he's more likely than not to stay in Milwaukee. But I think again, any team that's interested in anyone else on the trade market is going to wait for that door to close because the last thing you want to do is, go all in, acquire Kevin Durant or something like that, and then you find out you could have had Giannis for the same price or something similar, and that's what every team is going to look to avoid. So he's the first domino to fall. I think teams are going to hope that they have that information by draft night one way or the other, or at least have a pretty good inclination that he's going to stay, and then you start to move on. Kevin Durant, I think, is the big name. The big non-Giannis name out there, it seems like a foregone conclusion that he's going to be traded. I think from a 30,000-foot perspective, it'll be interesting to see 2 trends, really. One, how this finals run from Indiana in particular does this encourage more teams to think like, you know what? We really might be one move away. Like, all year we were saying Boston, Cleveland, OKC were the three best teams in the NBA. And like OKC might end up winning the title, so ultimately we were right to some extent, but Boston and Cleveland didn't even make it to the conference finals. So especially teams in the East with Jason Tatum injured, now we're hearing Darius Garland just had toe surgery. He's out potentially for the first little bit of the season. And there's like already some rumors that maybe that Cleveland would be open to moving on from him. So the East is wide open in particular. Do any teams decide to make a big gamble? And then, you've got the new CBA, the second apron looming over everything. And we're starting to really see the teeth of that sinking in. We saw, the Wolves trade Karl Anthony Towns right before training camp starts, in large part for financial reasons. Boston right now this summer, and pays for a $500 million payroll, an NBA record. With Tatum out, there's no way they're paying that amount of money. So,
Right.
One, if not more, of Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, one of those guys is going to be on the move, if possibly two of them. So, I think how teams kind of line up these windows, like I think teams are going to. Some teams are going to go in the second apron. Like, I don't think it's a pure hard cap. Some teams will decide this is our window. We will do this for a brief period of time. I don't think they'll do it for more than 2 years. So it'll be interesting to see, like, does any team sense this wide open NBA outside of OKC and say, you know what, we're willing to go all in. We'll do it for the next 2 years.
Well, I guess that my next question will get us right to that. The Sixers could potentially be one of those teams who would be approaching that second apron. Is there any prospect that they do anything other than just add an Ace Bailey, who's received some high praise, which is exciting from a lot of great players around the league? Is that really what Sixers people who are listening and who like the Sixers, is that really what they should look forward to as like the silver lining of the last season?
I mean, that's the safe play. I think if conventional wisdom holds, that's what they would do. Daryl Morey does not tend to be a safe type of executive. So, they've telegraphed like they don't want to trade this pick and Paul George for Kevin Durant. Like, they came out very emphatically against that rumor. There have also been a lot of rumors that they are considering trading back, and they have not swatted that down to the same extent. So I do think something like that could be on the table, whether it's just like, the Jazz have, I think, the 5th pick and the 21st pick. The Wizards have 6 and 18. The Nets have 8, 19, 26, 27. They've got the Sixers' own first-round pick in 2028. So it could just be 3 for a pick package. My favorite idea is 3 and whatever else you need for number 7 and Herb Jones from the New Orleans Pelicans. Apparently, there have been some rumors that Joe Dumars, their new executive, is pretty high on Ace Bailey. So I would be calling up Joe Dumars and saying, okay, you want number 3, we'll take number 7. What else are you throwing in there to get up to number 3?
What could New Orleans even give the Sixers, though? Are we talking about just like a whole boatload of picks? Is that what we're talking about?
I mean, honestly, I would do if it was just like 3. I wrote about it today because the other thing that's kind of complicating this. So they don't, other than their big 3, they don't have any big contracts they can trade because Kelly Oubre, Andre Drummond, Eric Gordon, they all have player options. But the deadline for the player options isn't until after the draft. So these guys cannot be traded until they pick up those options. All 3 of them are expected to return, but none of them, if I was their agent, I would tell none of them to pick up their option until after the draft, because then they can't be traded on draft night if so. So it's tricky for the Sixers to put together, like, if they wanted to go after like a Trey Murphy, for instance. Like, that would be a dream if they could get that done. But I don't think they have the salary I think they would basically have to trade Paul George, which, if the Pelicans are willing to do like 3 in Paul George for 7 Trey Murphy and whatever salary filler you need there, sign me up. I'm in. But I don't think the Pelicans are willing to do that.
Just take on that money.
Yeah, that would be my guess. But who knows? They're my favorite hypothetical trade partner. But otherwise, to your larger point about like what the Sixers can do, they, depending on if they stand pat or if they make some sort of trade like that, I would imagine they're going to try to stay under the second apron so they can maintain access to the taxpayer mid-level exception. My guess is that they don't use it on Gershon Yabusele and that he walks in free agency and that they just survey the market, see who's available, and pick someone else, like the best fit for what they need after the draft with that taxpayer MLE. Because we saw last summer, guys like Tyus Jones, Gary Trent Jr., Dillon Wright, all of them had to settle for minimum contracts. So this summer, Brooklyn is the only team with cap space. So guys, there are going to be some guys that get priced out again. And I think maintaining access to that instead of just having minimum contracts, there's a real chance that they could get a quality rotation player, even though it's $5.7 million. Doesn't sound like a lot of money, but that's still better than, $2.3 million or whatever the minimum ends up being.
It's not high tide here as a Sixers fan. My folks knew that I was not high on the idea of getting Paul George. I understand it was not really, if they wanted to continue to keep keep it interesting, people still thought that Paul George was somebody that I'm not sure he is anymore, but you feel like it was something that they had to do, Bryan, since I brought that up. Was that a choice that they had to make?
I don't think they had to. And I was in your camp. Like I wrote something leading up to the trade deadline last year where it said basically like they should not sign or trade for a third max player because of all of the complications that we're seeing now. And to the Sixers' credit, to Daryl Morey's credit, they have been good to some extent about working the margins. Like they have found, Kelly Oubre 2 years ago, Yabusele this past summer, Justin Edwards, an undrafted free agent. Their draft picks, they're like later draft picks. Bona was great. Maxey, obviously, McCain. So they have done very well. Quentin Grimes at the trade deadline, another example. So they have found that supporting cast or members of the supporting cast who could be long-term pieces on relatively inexpensive contracts, which is what Morey was arguing going into last summer. He was saying I'm confident in our front office. NBA history says you need the studs, and then the onus is on the front office to go and find those other players. He admitted that he erred last summer and kind of focusing more on veterans with playoff experience, the Reggie Jacksons, the Eric Gordons, Drummonds, Caleb Martin, Kyle Lowry. He has said repeatedly this offseason they're going to get younger, more athletic, more dynamic because you just need that for the way that the regular season is being played now. I think the Paul George thing is interesting because I would have been more willing to move on from him earlier than the Sixers were. I would have considered moving him at this year's trade deadline. The Warriors were very clearly looking for an upgrade, ended up getting Jimmy Butler. I don't know if the Sixers and Warriors had any sort of conversations about Paul George. Maybe not. The Warriors might not have been interested in the last year of that contract, but I would have been at least more open to exploring their options at that point. I think there might have been some reluctance from their side because their offseason was so ballyhooed, and now 6 months later you go around and trade the guy. What message is that going to send to any future free agents? I guess could be a concern.
Yep, bad business. Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, so I do think, I know the perception right now, and I think it's fair, is that Paul George is just an albatross of a contract. And right now, if they're trading him, they're not getting anything of real value in return. It's going to be expirings and, nothing close to resembling his on-court impact if he gets back to this all-star form. He did go on his podcast and say he was playing through a torn adductor this year. So I do think there's a chance that this year was just totally cooked for him from an injury perspective. He had the 2 bone bruises early. He has this adductor injury. I forget he had another injury at some point. So, I think you can at least make an argument, run it back one more time with this core, see if they stay healthy. And then if they don't, next offseason, all of those guys are going to have one less year on their deals. So maybe they won't be as toxic of contracts. You have Maxey, McCain, whatever, if you stay at 3, whoever you get at 3 or whoever you get in this year's draft, if you re-sign Quentin Grimes, they're not doing a 2 timelines thing like the Warriors. Yeah. Because the Warriors, it was clear, you guys can still compete for championships. You should be going all in. I think the Sixers are kind of doing a 2 timelines thing where it's we'll try this one more time, but if not, we've got a promising next era waiting in the wings that we feel pretty good about.
McCain, Maxey, you're speaking of.
Yeah, and then whoever they get in this year's draft, and if they re-sign Grimes. I mean, Bona, Edwards, they've got some pieces.
Grimes was a great pickup. It was a great pickup.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So in the land of crazy internet stuff, I've heard a little discussion about the Miami Heat getting both Ja Morant and Giannis. Is that bunk or is that potentially real?
Feels like bunk. I don't know how they would do it short of trading everyone on their roster and every single draft pick that they have. I mean, Bam Adebayo is absolutely going out in the Giannis deal. And I guess,
all the picks. Yeah, Duncan Robinson. Do you even want Duncan at this point?
Right. And Terry Rozier is not going to be of real value. I mean, I think I want to say Rozier.
Duncan Robinson.
Sure. Yeah. If they don't even have the salary to match for him. That's the problem. No, I think that is aggressively bunk. That sounds like even more of a pipe dream than when Heat fans spent 4 months talking themselves into their crappy package being enough to get Dame Lillard a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Man, and good thing for the Heat that they didn't pick that up because these players that were being included in that trade discussion were not fair value.
Yeah, I mean, right now Dame's going to be out for the next year, so they might have dodged a bullet with that one. But then again, Jimmy Butler might still be in Miami had they swung that deal, so maybe they did not dodge a bullet.
So finals pick, Brian. We're doing this before, for the record. Anybody want to clip this up? We are doing this before game 3. So finals pick and in how many games?
I'm going the Thunder, and I'm hoping that Halliburton is healthy enough that they can push it to 6. I would be surprised if it went 7. I think to what you said earlier, if Hallie is not healthy, it's Thunder in 5. If Hallie is healthy enough, we'll go Thunder in 6.
I do expect game 3, Pacers will come out, get that one. I think it's all going to be about game 4. I think game 4 will tell us everything. If they don't get game 4, it's probably going to be over. So, yeah. Be interesting. Well, Brian, thank you so much. And listeners, continue listen on. We have other segments coming at you shortly.
Fly ball, left center field. That'll do it. Petro Armstrong going back. It's off the base of the wall. A little exclamation point from Brandon Marsh. Oh, man. Everybody touches their bag, and the Phillies win it in the bottom of the 11th inning by a final score of 4-3.
Hey, y'all. Today on this show, it's of course Matt Rogers on the Honorable Mention podcast. Today's show, we have a couple of different segments. We'll be covering the Phillies, the NBA Finals, and a little bit from Philadelphia Eagles camp. To cover the Phils for us today is Frank Klose from 97.3 ESPN. Frank, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you, Matt?
Good. I was just saying a second ago before we got started, I'm glad we actually did go ahead and green light tonight as the night to record, because it's been rough for the Phils and we're getting to record after a win. So it doesn't mean we'll be saying all good things, but I think it will be a little more rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, and against a good Cubs team too. So
Yeah.
it's been a rough 10 days after what was pretty good for a while there. So it's amazing how the mood can shift so quickly on the cut of a time. From everything is wonderful, everything is great. Phillies are the best team in baseball to all of a sudden like this is the worst team I've ever seen. I can't stand watching anymore. So it's like we're in one of those little downhill stretches where I think you're just seeing a lot of the weaknesses exposed all at once.
Yeah. I mean, how do they? I was going to ask you this later, but it's the one that's coming to mind the most. I mean, they won 3-4 tonight. The Bills just simply are not scoring enough runs. Almost squandered a gem from Wheeler tonight. Squandered a gem. I would call gem seven innings, two runs one run from Sanchez yesterday, I believe.
One inherited run scored later, yeah. So it was So he did get charged with that second, but it was still a very great start. Yeah, and Suarez pitched well.
What do they do? I mean, with what they already have on the field without going outside, is there a change of approach that's needed? I mean, especially from Alec Bohm, I would suggest one is needed, but other than him seeing more than one or two pitches, maybe sometimes.
Well, I think there's two elements to this. One is that Alec Bohm is not consistent, and I thought he would be. The fact that he can make such great contact on a regular basis, I expected him to just take off. Now, last year he did take off, and then he fell apart towards the end of the year. This year, another rough stretch, seemed to be getting it back together again. So I think you've got something in Alec Bohm, but at the same time, he's not consistent enough to count on him. And then when you go talk Bryson Stott, another contact bat, had a really nice stretch leading off, seemed to fall apart. And then, that consistency is the issue. Now, you get a consistent glove out of Bryson Stott. A lot of teams would love to have him, and if he's batting like 7th or 8th, we'll give you something at sometimes. Other times he needs to he just can't get out of his own way. So when those are two of your core players, and then you lose Bryce Harper, you can't afford to have Weston Wilson, Brandon Marsh, or the other half of their platoons, Johan Rojas, Max Kepler. I forget who I said first, but Kepler, Rojas, Wilson, and then Marsh. Those are a lot of outs, and I think that you get one injury, you really show the lack of depth on this roster. And right now, that's their biggest weakness. Now, one of the things I was saying the other night, I think I was talking to Bob Wankel online, and he was bemoaning the outfielders. The problem with this platoon and center, especially, I mean, you'd say the same thing about left. You're tying up 2 roster spots at 2 positions, and then you don't really have an impact bench bat either to come in and get a key pinch hit late in the game. So going from one to the other, when if you're facing a lefty and then all of a sudden a righty comes in and they just flip to the other guy, you're not getting that kind of impact out of them that you would get out of, think through Phillies history. I know I learned a lot about Dillon from my dad, and Greg Dobbs hit the pinch hit record for the Phillies in 2008. Think to Matt Stairs, around the same era, right? I mean, you got some professional, and Jay Bruce when he kind of came in as sort of extra help. You don't have that veteran polished impact bat on your bench, and I think that's the thing that's killing them right now, because they get things going, and then they end up with a strikeout or a weak ground ball or a pop out. And it comes at the end of an undisciplined at bat. So I really want them to see them get an impact bat or two for the bench that could start if necessary. Maybe if you have a platoon, that might be fine. But they need to clean up some of these holes that they have on the offensive side, because again, if this week it's Bryce Harper who's dealing with something, right? What if Kyle Schwarber, hopefully he doesn't, but I mean it's a long season, right? I mean, a couple years ago he pulled something, or it was last year maybe he pulled something and then he missed a couple weeks. I mean it happens, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but you saw what can happen in 10 days time. Phillies going 1-9, when they miss one of their guys. So hopefully they don't miss any more, and they just don't have the depth there to pull themselves out of it.
You said a potential impact bat. I mean, obviously not reporting anything here, but who are some of those potential names like that make sense to you that you heard that could be available?
It's really hard to say who exactly is available, because right now, if you look through the standings, there's a lot of teams in and around the 500 mark, right? In the 3 wild card era, you're going to find yourself with some teams right now that are 3 games under 500 on June 9th or 10th or 11th or whenever you happen to be listening to this, folks. But they think, oh, well, we're in it. And you might look at them and say, hey, listen, you're fooling yourselves, right? I mean, Cincinnati's a game over 500 right now. That's after they won 6 of 10, right? But 10 days ago they were a game under 500. So I mean, even picking up a couple games, those 500-ish teams, they might say Cincinnati's saying, "Hey, I'm not trading anybody. I'm doing all right."
Yeah.
And then you look at
like a Spencer Steer, if you're saying,
yeah.
But I guess he plays outfield and third. Maybe they could bring him to play outfield, I guess. But that would be the type of guy. But you're saying if I haven't decided I'm a seller, I'm not selling.
Right. And I mean, I'm just going up and down the standings now. I mean, Texas Rangers 4 games under 500. Now they were in the World Series a couple of years ago, right? Are they gonna say, hey, no, I can go on a nice win streak and all of a sudden we're back in it? And they're not wrong. I mean, they've got a lot of talent. The Angels, they fool themselves all the time. I mean, they should have traded Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani a few years ago while they could, and they didn't. So I mean, they're toiling. But I mean, but those are the 3rd and 4th teams in that division. So I mean, the Athletics are in the cellar, right? The White Sox are in the cellar.
They'll sell. They should be sellers. The Athletics should definitely be, and they've got some pieces that they could pick up, some assets.
But they're also being foolhardy about them. They're not going to trade Mason Miller no matter what, even though by the time they show up in Las Vegas, he could be out the door. And he's a 1-inning reliever, whereas they might be able to add impact somewhere else in the roster. So again, I mean, that belongs to them. I can't tell somebody what to do with their stuff, right? I mean, you know what I mean? So, I can think my neighbor's foolish to spend $50,000 on a car, but hey, it's his money, right? Yeah. So, and we know people that are foolish, right? Like that, right? So, absolutely. But like Boston, 3 games under the 500 mark. The Rays right now, they won 7 out of 10 and they're at 5 above 500. But they were like, again, 10 days ago, teetering around the 500 mark, and you wondered what they would do. So, I mean, it's just really hard to say who's going to sell. I mean, the Arizona Diamondbacks have been a disappointment. They have some good pieces, but again, they just lost 3 in a row to be 300, the 500 mark. Anyway, I'm spending way too much time making this point, but all these teams are in it. So talk about who's available. I mean, you basically get to look at what Colorado, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore assume that they'll trade players. But I mean, Baltimore was good last year. They might not be in them, and they've won 7 out of 10. I mean, they might say, hey, we're going to hang on to our guys, if not for this year, for next year. So The only name I can come up with that I would like to see as an impact bat, I don't even know if he's available from this last place team, but I think Andrew McCutchen would be a really nice fit with the Phillies.
Bring him back, two-time Pirate, two-time Philly, huh?
I only bring his name into this mix thinking that maybe because he had 3 years in Philly and he might have enjoyed his time and he wants to win a World Series, he might be open to it, right? That's the only reason I think that they might have a shot. I don't think Andrew McCutchen's. I don't know if I don't think he has a no trade, but I think but he's got like a handshake deal with his team, basically. Like, you're not going to trade me. No, last year that was the case. I assume that that's the case this year, but you could always call up his agent and say, "Hey, look, would he come back to Philly? We need a right-handed bat for the outfield," and he's been pretty good. I mean, he's not playing every day, and I think he's the type of professional hitter you would like.
His role.
Yeah, he's still capable in left field. So, I mean, the numbers support that. So,
but he's not an impact bat. He'd be a good. I think he's a good glue guy, good not bullpen, bench guy for the clubhouse.
I mean, would you play him over Weston Wilson?
Yeah, I'd play a lot of guys to that point.
Yeah.
I'd play a lot of guys over
I mean, that's basically what we're thinking, right? Like, who's gonna? I mean, Max Kepler so far has been Michael Saunders, if you remember that name. But I don't know if you even keep Max Kepler around, but if you're committed to that, McCutchen would be a nice right-handed side to that. So, I mean I'm sure any reliever that can throw the ball you're interested in, and there will be relievers available. There's one guy in Colorado, Bird. He's having a really nice season for the Rockies. I think I'd be interested in him from the right side, and from the left side, if Jake Bird is, I would. Well, really, they need one on each side. So I say Jake Bird's my right-handed guy if the Rockies will trade him, and then if I was going to go to the left side, depends on where the Tampa Bay Rays are in all this at the deadline, but they have a left-handed reliever that's kind of come on to be pretty consistent. That might be available. I did see. I think it was on ESPN, one of the rundowns of who could be available, but someone who's been able to get high leverage outs from the left side, and his name is Garrett Cleavinger, which was the player the Phillies traded for Jose Alvarado.
Oh man, said a bad word on this podcast.
I know, but you know what? But you know what though? I mean, irony aside, I mean, I think he's a nice fit for what the Phillies need.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, but of course, the fact that the Phillies traded him for Alvarado, I don't know if you need to worry about salt and wounds if you just get better at the end of the day, right? But
Alvarado can't be mad at anyone if that would be the person we'd be worried about. I mean, because he's not eligible for the playoffs.
He's not, so they have to move on with they have to move on without him. And you're seeing right now how badly he hurt this Phillies team. With his irresponsibility. So, and I don't care. Oh, he accidentally thought that he was getting breast implants or whatever the excuses they come up with.
This is your job. Yeah.
They make it so easy. There's apps you can scan something at the GNC and see what comes up. There's a hotline you can call 24 hours a day. Say, hey, can I put this in my body? Like, if you just say, oh, I'm trying to lose weight, or who was it? Back in the day.
On this one.
I mean, the excuses are just stupid. Like, I remember Marlon Byrd, he took something to reduce his breast size or something like that. Well, it was just often that's one of the telltale signs, because
you artificial testosterone, which is exactly what we're trying to root out of the game.
So I don't care what the excuse is. It's real easy for them to know if what they're putting in their body is okay or not, right? So there's no, oops, I bought a protein shake at Aldi and it turned out to be steroid. I mean, come on.
You're not the regular Joe, sir. We pay you this kind of money. It's not like the 10s where guys were making regular folks' salaries. No, this is, you have all the resources. Everybody's got the internet.
Yuka, all those apps. I mean, come on.
Yeah, no. So I think this is a major disappointment, but he put the Phillies in a really bad spot, and when it happened, I know on the radio I said, look, they're going to lose some games badly, because of him, and in the interim, but there's not too much. I mean, yeah, you got to worry. It's something you have to address, but I mean, the way the trade deadline is, there's literally nothing you can do right now, till about halfway through July. So you're just gonna kind of have to live with it the best you can, and then see what you can get. I mean, it's like Carlos Hernandez. He was like the one that was going to be on the roster for a week, remember? And then and then they would get Ranger back, and that would be the end of that. But it's just amazing how quickly one key subtraction just changes everything, and yeah, it's put them in a bad spot. So I mean, Phillies obviously need a couple of relievers. They need at least a bat. I would take two. I would look for a left-handed bench bat too, and also I would just give center field to Justin Crawford, and not worry about two roster spots for Rojas and Marsh. And they can keep one in the minor leagues. They could trade one. They could probably trade one of the two, because everybody needs a center fielder, it seems, or somebody who's not trying to win this year will take on a project. But it's yeah, they need some bench help as well. So, but you mentioned the starting rotation and wasting the good starts. I mean, the thing about the Phillies is they've got such good quality starting pitching that they will, if nothing else goes right, they will accidentally be competitors just from the starting pitching, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they can. Not every stretch is going to be like the current one, right? I mean, they also, and even look, Zach Wheeler having a baby, right? What are you going to do about that?
Yep.
The fact that you got to shuffle the rotation, that probably messed with them a little bit, and the fact that you played a bullpen game, which was that's one of my least favorite things in all of baseball. But that has a domino effect, right? It messes up who's available the next day or the day thereafter, et cetera, et cetera. So, but you're going to have stretches like this. Even last year's team lost 9-10, I think, at one point, and 2011 Phillies, which was the best win total in Phillies history. They had stretches like this where you're just banging your head on the floor, just thinking like nothing's ever going to get better ever again. And then so it's one of those things where I think Philly fans are just so football minded at times. I mean, it was. You remember last year? Like, I know you watched the Eagles too, right?
Of course.
That game against the Buccaneers in Tampa was one of the worst games of the season, and really, like, I flew down and watched it, and that was the kind of game walking out. It's like, all right, one more bad game, and then Sirianni's out of here. I mean, it's
absolutely
when you have a 17 game season, that's what you got. That's the mindset you have, right? There's not time to mess around, and you need to make maybe not knee jerk reactions, but you need to certainly react a lot more quickly. So it seemed like
sample. So there's more data in baseball, is what you're saying.
Yeah. It's not the same kind of environment where they'll make a decision on a head coach after week 4 or 5. I mean, if you do the percentages there, but I think that mindset is where a lot of Phillies fans are, and they're hanging on every single night, and then a few days in a row that are bad feel really bad. I mean, before I got into doing media stuff, man, I was like the 08 to 11 run. I was hanging on every little or 07, I guess, even before. But I was hanging on to every game every night, right? It was like if they could win 9-10, and then if the 10th one's a bad loss, I'm like all mad about it the next day, and I can't I can't live my normal life. But so I certainly get where they're at, and they want some more knee jerk reactions, and it's just with baseball, you just can't do it. And I personally would like to see them upgrade in some areas. I would like to see Justin Crawford come up soon. By the way, I was looking on eBay if there were any JP Crawford Phillies jerseys hanging out there, because I watch the other Crawford be assigned the same jersey number, because it's open. So, yeah, you just gotta wait it out a little bit. You want Justin Crawford now. I know a lot of people have been talking about that lately, but the reality is they need to let a few other things work themselves out too, including, is there a trade partner for Brandon Marsh, or is there, I don't think they're going to demote two of them, so
Right.
or should they demote Johan Rojas to AAA? I mean, I think those are bigger picture questions that don't have a quick answer, but I think those answers need to come sooner than later, which is why he ended up coming up with the Harper injury, but why I wrote something the other day for 97.3 ESPN.com. Of course, as soon as I hit send, he was promoted, but Otto Kemp, you get a guy like that, you want to see what he can do.
Hero of the night, or one of the heroes of the night.
Yeah, with those 3 hits, including that bunt. By the way, small sample size, but I'm impressed. But
extremely 5 at bats.
Yeah.
5 big league.
No, but you know what? But my thought was, look, you got to see if he was killing it at AAA. You got to see what you have out of him before the trade deadline, right? So
Exactly.
if you determine that he can't hang in the major leagues, and let's face it, a lot of players are like that, right? They have great AAA numbers and they just can't hang out in the major leagues, which that's just reality. So I want them to give him a shot, so they had time to evaluate. So the Harper injury is giving him that opportunity, and if he's showing them a lot, then it very well could be that after 10 days, if Harper's back, I mean, he could stick around and get more of a look. So, but yeah, I think that the problem with baseball is you just got to be patient, and who's got time for that?
Speaking of that, how long should Phillies wait before they expect Bryce Harper back?
This is a tough one, because this was the same wrist that was bothering him last year. It sounds like it's kind of something that just happens over a period of time with heavy use. He mentioned that last year after the season was over, like, it would clear it up in a couple months or something. Well, I don't know that they're going to wait a couple months. You'd like to think that by the time that his 10 days are up, that he'll be able to come back. I say you'd like to think that, but it's really going to be a matter of comfort. I don't get the impression that this is something that he can make worse if he plays, but sounds like just rest is the only thing that's going to make it more comfortable. And this might be one of those nagging things that lasts him a career. So I think that's big picture. You got to wonder where this is going to go, but
he's got to wear the armor like Bonds did. He's getting whacked in that same area every time.
Yeah, but this was his wrist where he got whacked in the arm, which was Spencer Strider gave the Braves a few games. By the way, the Braves have been awful since that series. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but it seemed like that the Braves were having a resurgence, and then they've just been playing completely terribly.
Acuna had a home run tonight, but
well, Acuna's an Acuna, so he's going to, I figure he'll be fine. But they've got issues beyond that. But
absolutely,
beyond his injury earlier in the season. But yeah, geez, I don't have an answer. In fact, they might not have an answer. I think one of the nice things is as opposed to an off season where it's healing, you've got trainers to work with him and try to alleviate the pain. But I just get the impression this is going to be one of those intermittent things that they're just going to have to keep an eye on and make sure it doesn't get worse, and that he's comfortable. So, but you got to wonder, after he got hit in the elbow, is that messing with his swing, and then he aggravated his wrist that way. I think that's a legitimate question, and they're gonna have to figure out just what's really going to work for him pain-wise too. What's his threshold for pain? what can they do to alleviate that? And that's not a question probably with an easy answer. Now they like to say, well, they hope it'll be quick, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not. Especially if they. But put it this way, they're not gonna rush him because the team is scuffling. I think because again, big picture, long season. That's the kind of thing that I think we need to remember with this. But it's going to be frustrating, and there's other players that have to step up. I mean, I just can't imagine why. I mean, think about all the big money players that are in that lineup too. I mean, you've got Schwarber, Turner, Castellanos, right? Those three alone should be producing you some runs, even if nobody else plays, right? And then you go to the Bohms, that are supposed to be
ascending.
Supposed to be hitting, right? I mean, so he's kind of key. And then you're gonna have the ones in the lineup that aren't, but gosh. I mean, even Weston Wilson came up with a big hit after being 0 for 16 or something like that. So, but you need those types of guys to contribute when their name's called,
Weston Wilson can't hit 150. I mean,
yeah,
Ross gets so much flack. He's batting 2-4. I know he doesn't have a ton of at bats, but Weston Wilson's batting 150, folks.
Rojas hasn't also hit since May, so maybe again. So,
yeah,
it's you got to get something out of those spots. And hey, when Rojas was hitting earlier in the season, he contributed meaningfully to the line, the lineup and the offense. And you see a real difference when guys like that when they become automatic outs, right? I mean, this is the DH era, and you've got a pitcher spot anyway.
Yes, we do. Frank, thank you so much. You gave us a lot to think about, a lot of research to do, some thoughts about some players that could be coming to the Phillies, some ways that the Phillies could improve, plate discipline, and other things. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll bring you back another time to talk about the Phillies, hopefully in better times.
Yes. It will get better. I promise you that, Matt.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
No problem.
The thing you notice the most when you're not in good shape, one, injuries happen. The other thing that happens is your detail slips. And in every phase, the detail has to be on point. And you can't do that unless you're in great shape.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for listening all the way through to the end here. You won't be disappointed. Today, we have a frequent flyer on the show, Chris Franklin from NJ.com. He's crazy enough to continue to come on and talk about sports and some other things at other times with me, and I'm very appreciative of it. Chris, we'll get into the reigning, defending Super Bowl champions later, of course, your specialty and my interest. But first, a topic I wanted to kind of pick your brain on because folks don't know, but you played the position of quarterback. What do you think? And you didn't play in the NFL, so I don't want to be giving fake news, but you did not play in the league, but you played at not a low level. So I will say not at a low level. So you played the position. You understand the position. What are you expecting to see? The whole back stuff and that whatever. He wants to take psychedelic drugs, fine, do your thing. Follow the laws where you're at, including the listeners. But on the field, what is Aaron Rodgers going to bring to the Steelers this year?
I think he brings them the known quantity, and he pretty much was their only option when you look at the way the market shaped out. I mean, Kirk Cousins, getting him, he costs too much. Does he really move the needle any bit for Steelers? Not really. So Aaron Rodgers was your best shot, and I think you get a guy he's seen every type of offense there is, which is important because he knows the ball. He's not as mobile as he once was, so don't expect to see the Aaron Rodgers of 2013, 2014, where he's buying time 7 seconds. Like, wow, this guy's still. Yeah, nah. It's just more of a 1, 2, 3 steps grow, like 1, 2, 3 step out, 5 steps, and gives you a chance for the deep ball. Which, looking for what the Steelers are, well, he might win them an extra game or two, but he's not the type of quarterback that can win you the AFC Championship, which is the ultimate goal. And I look at the way that what he brings. You lost George Pickens. I mean, if George Pickens was still there with DK Metcalf, then I'd say, you know what? Maybe you challenge the
It could be
Bengals.
dangerous.
I
Not
just don't-
dangerous. Dangerous for that to be the second team out of that division is what I'm saying. Dangerous.
Even then, the Ravens are the best team there.
Right. Agreed.
The Browns stink. So you look at the Bengals. The Bengals should be better because they got the court. They're going to have to outscore everybody. It's basically and the Chargers made the joke in the schedule thing where they had the two roads. Like, do you rebuild or do you go for it? And all roads lead to 9-8. Maybe they're 10-7. That's the only thing to see with this. But it's a lot of strike. And if they don't win early, if there's no road, I think they get Tomlin might seriously be facing his first losing season. And with him, with the way everything's ended this last couple of years, the questions are the seat's going to get a little hotter. So
if he does it now, no, I think he's off the seat. I think the seat's cool. He's off. I think if Tomlin has another, they're starting. That fan base is even starting to count these seasons where they, have a winning season, but they're not in the playoffs, or they get into the playoffs and they get bounced in the first round. He's not even getting credit for that anymore. And I mean, they're catching hell for getting Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, there's some in the fan base who are excited about it. But, you don't really see Terry Bradshaw comment too openly on the Steelers quarterback situation. I don't know how those, bring Knights and all those bring back the greats. Ooh. And then they gave him number 12 for that.
and then that's all they forced him to change like that. And then the worst part was I saw this one comment. He's not happy about it at all. So he said, I think it's like if the Steelers need to chew, and I don't know the full thing, but I just remember the words chew on bark because he was upset.
Yes.
He does not like it at all.
Yes.
Which I don't blame him because it's just not the type of guy that changes the whole entire franchise. For where he's at right now, he's not. And it's just a bad situation.
And you're right for the football portion of it, which is the way I framed the question. It was their best football move. I think Kirk Cousins gives them equal productivity, but you raise a good point, Chris. It would have cost them more because they wouldn't even take more of it off of Atlanta's hands. So instead of the $13 million to repair Aaron Rodgers, probably would have had to pay in the order of $20 million for somebody I'm truly not sure if Kirk Cousins is better than Aaron.
Yeah, and then you look at the fact that contractually it works out because you're paying definitely less than what you were having to pay Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. The fact that Justin Fields is making more money there was like, wait, what? But you are. So the fact that I'm reinvesting that money, like I'm looking for like any other thing that they're already upset their TJ Watt. So I can see they can say, okay, here's the money we're going to put in that reinvest in there. Here's your new contract. You're going on. See you later. But you still got to worry about the offense. It's not the 1990s anymore. And it looks like Tomlin's going down the same road Bill Cowher did. And what killed him, Cowher at the end, was there weren't that great quarterbacks. Tom Zach, Neil O'Donnell. Yeah, you're decent, sure, but after a while, you're going to run. Next thing you know, next year we'll say, "Hey, is Ryan Tannehill still retired? Is he still available to play?" Like, come on, like it's they need to draft somebody.
How many? And I'm in my mind, I'm kind of trying to go through it. Like, how many truly, completely drop back quarterbacks? I mean, you got Baker Mayfield, but he's still got some level of wheels. I mean, Joe Burrow, if he needs to, Mahomes, if he needs to, he can get out. Aaron's not getting out at this age, and so it's an interesting experiment in the modern NFL, the way defenses are now built. If the style of quarterback where you're just going to drop back 30 times a game with not moving the pocket at all, does that even work anymore?
It does, but you have to have the offensive line to do it, and you have to have a quarterback that has that quick throwing time of release.
Yes.
And usually times they're veteran guys and coming around. And you mentioned the same for Kirk Cousins. He's the type of guy to do it. Andy Dalton's. Yeah. Basically, it seems like once you lose that mobility, you don't feel like getting hit anymore. That's when it happens. And for that type of offense, you either need to have a really, really good run game and be really, truly balanced, what you see some teams doing now is like everything's cyclical. Like you look at the running games start becoming vogue now because everybody's doing that. So it's going to be cyclical. But you need somebody who not only can read those defenses, somebody who can take advantage of the play action, still has the arm strength to get it down the field. It's not that many in between. That's why you have Rodgers in this weird little outlier in that, because usually around his age, trying to throw and everything, like he still throw most of those balls he needs to do, but you need somebody to throw the ball in to continue for him probably having to throw in these really tight windows all the time because you don't have that many weapons to help support you besides DK. And we know teams are going to roll over safety for DK and say, have somebody else beat us. It just rough. It makes no sense. And
we've seen this experiment. Aaron Rodgers with a top flight wide receiver. It's not like this is a new phenomenon. I mean, Devontae Adams, he just had Devontae Adams. And Devontae Adams has to take a little bit of a step back. Still Devontae Adams.
Yeah. And also the issues were the offensive line too. I look at the Steelers' offensive line. Is it better than most of the time what they have with the Jets and 49ers Packers? Yeah, it is. But it's nothing to write home. It's nothing that is write home about. So now you can have all the time in the world, but nobody's getting the separation to make you feel comfortable to throw the ball. You're just setting yourself up for it. It'll be more coverage sacks than just being blitzed and seeing sack. You have you have to wait 1 or 2 more seconds before you get hit and taken to the ground. That's about it.
So staying in the AFC North, staying in the division, talking about the quarterback situation, I'm starting to think that I want to hear your thoughts on what are the chances Shedeur ends up being the week 1 starter? Not at some point this season, but week 1.
I still say hold off for me personally. I think he'll see it started, but not until like the middle or late in the year. I think it's gonna be Kenny Pickett's job to start. Flacco, for me, I look at Flacco. I wonder if he's the one that gets cut and then adds back to the practice squad because he's still.
Is he willing to do that at this age? What the hell am I doing? I'm Flacco. What am I doing? I'm going to be your practice squad guy.
It's better than getting a check than just sitting around just waiting and sign on. Like some other team could try to scoop him up if there's an injury. You have that available, but the fact that because it'll be a bad look to burn the 3rd round pick, because I think Shedeur Sanders is better than Dillon Gabriel. I look at that. He's better than him that. So to cut your 3rd round pick, that's a bad look for GM who's already
in practice squad.
Next year.
He'll certainly get picked up.
Oh yeah.
Somebody else will pick up him.
Yeah. Wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles picked him up and say, hey, you know what? Sit on the bench, learn this one here, and you're going out. So
Kyle McCord the PS.
Kyle McCord, yep, he goes there and shifted down. It's playing with fire, and it will be a bad look for the GM. So I think Shedeur winds up being the emergency. I think Flacco is cut, but I think there's elements are still there because that pick screams all Jimmy has it. Just by looking at the facial expressions, when they were announcing, you saw them looking and they were announcing the Shedeur Sanders pick, and you just saw Stefanski and you saw Barry with that look.
No enthusiasm.
We're gonna look bad. We're gonna look bad.
Well, that be when your boss gives you a BS assignment.
Yeah. We're gonna do this one. Oh yeah, we've worked really hard. We did it. Yeah, I don't care. Just draft this guy. I think we need some headlines for it. Sure, you know what's wrong? Like Sanders is a guy. Like I thought Sanders should. I'm not on Mel Kiper level saying, "Oh, why wasn't he taken in the first? This is bad."
Yeah.
I thought he should have been drafted a lot higher. He really should have.
I mean,
and he's got the talent to do it.
I could see him slip into the 3rd. The 4th and 5th is where I saw insult to injury. Is how I'll leave it at that. I don't want to make the whole show about that, but you can't say you gave him a true grade on the field of 4th, 5th rank. I mean,
there was some heat. There were some heat to the rumors. So I've been told there's heat to the rumors. We're actually in the 5th round. They had to trade up to get him because if not, we would be talking to Shedeur Sanders, Philadelphia.
Yes.
As back like as a 3rd stringer, we would be talking about that, and it would have been that firestorm around there. The Browns were like, no, we need this, which adds another song. You gave up assets to move up again just to draft him when you took a quarterback in the 3rd round. And oh yeah, you have an older quarterback in Joe Flacco. And oh yeah, you traded assets, even though it was a 6th round pick, I think it was, and another quarterback, Robinson Thompson, to get Kenny Pickett. which
and they have another quarterback who will be coming back at some point.
It's just, I think he's not like he's an untradeable commodity. They have to live with that contract and
Yes,
as hard. So
healthy
yeah,
scratch.
hey guys, I can
most
help out in the
expensive.
quarterback room. I can help in the quarterback room. I can help here. Go away, Deshaun. It's like the show Sister.
James Bradbury.
Go home, Deshaun. Aww.
Trying to diss because James played it well. He was a good pro about the whole thing, but it's kind of one of those things like we're gonna pay you. You're gonna take this money, but we're not putting you on the field. We're clear on that. No hard feelings. Take this money.
Woosah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Nah, it needs to happen, and so I think somebody's gonna take a chance on him. Somebody, I don't know why, but Deshaun Watson, someone's gonna take a chance. Deshaun Watson,
that name, it might be Jera.
And stay away. Let's focus on his Phillies. Work on that, and miraculously, I love how it was like, yeah, let's let him take all season. Even though he could come back in the before the end of the season. Nah, he's done. Just move on from that.
No. It's reported that every single Eagles player was present today for the last session before training camp. Even they had former Eagles, I guess legend may be strong, but Deshaun Jackson was in attendance today. Is that typical, or is this year exceptional in that respect?
Well, the main thing I think is good for teams that usually let us wrap up all their contract things, questions, what have you. And there's none of that right now. So that's what I think is that for them, it normally is typical for the mandatory mini camp. Voluntaries are usually like, all right, we know it's not, if you're usually a veteran guy who's been around the block for a while, who's been in the system for a while, you're so comfortable, like guys like Lane Johnson, Vontae, AJ, what have you. It's like, all right, you know what the system's going to be pretty much. You know what's expected when it comes to running the routes, which also could gives you a clue of what new offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo may not be that much change in terms of terminology stuff. So you really don't have to have those guys out like neither to learn everything else from that. But I think for the Eagles, it is a lot of teams that the organizations that get out in front of their star players in terms of contract negotiations, in terms of trying to lock them up long term, so it's not lingering over and becoming an issue later on. The only time you've ever seen them really have that issue that they kept up with was that Von Reddick thing, and even then, Reddick just decided, well, he's with the Eagles at least. Reddick decided, okay, I'm just not talking to the media because I don't want this to get out there and say what I think. Cause he was going to tell the truth. Value, really. Yeah. He was with that one. He said, you know what, I'm not going to talk. I'm just staying away from that one too. But you look at a lot of these other teams, like we mentioned, Steelers, TJ Watt. The Bengals, for me, for the life of me, I don't know what they were doing with Trey Hendrickson, and the way they're handling it is just a textbook of now not to do this, like how to make your star defensive player mad when you don't.
It's how to repel good future players from coming to your team too. Let the league in sacks. You go and pay another guy on the offense when we just saw Burrow had a historic year and y'all missed the playoffs.
It's for me, edge rusher is more important, I think, than looking at a wide receiver.
Number 2 wide out.
And I could see if you didn't have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins was your guy, okay, I get it. But you already have Jamar Chase. You could find many other wide receivers that can be a complimentary number 2 that can get you yards downfield. If you want to say Chase is your bell cow that you can run on the whole route for your intermediate and all stuff, try to make sure you focus all your attention on him, okay, you got that. But if you have a decent number 2 weapon, like the way Metcalf and Pickens could have been, you look at decent, you don't have to be a star, but a decent one,
yes,
you're all right. I think if there's easier find an edge rusher that's they're very, very impactful, and then to come out publicly saying we're keeping in contact, they're not really keeping in contact. To then let him go out like press wise, he has to make an appearance, he has to talk somewhere. He doesn't really have to, but they gave him the thing and you just trash him, and you're just being cheap about it. He's gone. Like there's no market. Everybody just knows the reason why we couldn't get trade market value. Yeah, because everybody knows he's gone after next year. They don't want to play with you. So why pay all that money now when you can get money that without having to give up an asset?
Oh yeah, no assets, and I'll pay because you're gonna have to pay him regardless. You're not gonna keep bringing him in and him being a rental. So I'm gonna pay the contract I'm gonna pay the man regardless. So what are we doing?
I was late, and Unless you have a billion draft picks, you're like, let me just take a flyer. You have a lot of cap space. Nobody has a bunch of picks and a bunch of cap space to get that guy. So it was like, yeah, we know it wasn't going to happen. And if you're the Bengals, you probably would have eaten a lot of money. And we know the Bengals are cheap. That's the team that held it looked like, at least when it came to the war room cans, held it in their cafeteria. Their war room is the cafeteria of the facility, which is, they're just a mess right now. And that's to me, I look at the way that when they went to that Super Bowl, even though they lost, that was an achievement in itself because the organization around them the organization part is bad. The players are good. The organization is bad. And
Yes.
it's a mess.
Yeah, Burr was amazing for what he's able to do. It seems everybody in the NovaCare facility is very high on Ty Robinson. And I like what I've seen as well. But I'm hearing his name a lot. The amount I'm hearing his name makes me think that I should expect to see him get some significant snaps in year one. But that's interesting because Moro Ojomo didn't start off getting a ton of snaps. Do you see him getting, right off the bat, be integrated into this defensive line rotation?
I think he'll see some time to begin with. Nothing significant because losing Milton Williams, that's a big blow. That he filled in. As much as we saw the 5-man line, he was that third guy. We saw what he did. But one thing that you probably look at in terms of, you'll see Jalen Carter, you see Jordan Davis out there a lot more. And early on, you don't want to burn those guys out. So I would be surprised early in the season they start to give them a few snaps off and you have to put some guys in there. But Moro Jomo, I think was very underrated last year. And PFF is one of those sites where you're like, it could be really good or it could be really misleading.
Right.
But you look at the pure parts of the pass rush win rates of him. Moro Jomo was doing a really good job playing that three technique and shooting those gaps. You're giving him, his developed a little bit, but his body's more developed as well too, in order to handle that extra increased workload. And he's a smart player. He knows that you can read like little things like reading where the splits are, reading how the offensive line is handled. He could pick those up quickly and help you out there. So the fact that you have him available, you can see that. One guy I think is not getting talked enough about that we could see some extra snaps as well too. Thomas Booker. He got a lot of snaps for the end of that season too. So you add five, like this team last year, they carried a lot of defensive tackles, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did that again. The whole Byron Young thing, they kept him around for a long time last year, and I'm shocked they kept him around for a long time. They obviously saw something. Maybe it could be because of the agent. He's the same agent as starting quarterback. And that happens a little bit. They help out a little bit, like, hey, keep the guy on here a little bit.
Yeah.
But they kept him around for a reason. So he'll get his time. He can be really impactful. I like the way that he can play the 3, the 5, if he needs to get that look. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some 3-3-5 looks with Jahad Campbell. So he'll get some looks. I like his quickness. I like his strength. It may be an adjustment period, getting used to the speed of the game. That's for all rookies. So
I see him being very helpful in the bear front, where you have JD right over the nose, and you put Ty, you put Jalen Carter out there. That can be scary sometimes. Those guards get 1-on-1s in that bear front. Come out first down, hit him in the mouth.
You sit there like, okay, what? I don't know what to do. And you saw how important that their play is. You start the rotations up. You keep these guys fresh and roughy. You do well. You saw how a really good defensive tackle can make up for your linebackers. And if you have really good defensive tackles and really good linebackers behind them, you got San Fran back in like 13, 14. And when Vic was coaching them and Bowman and all those guys, he kind of had the same thing again. So it's an important position, and who knows? It turns out. But I think right now, I wouldn't put too much pressure on it, too much things on him right now. But as the season progresses, they're going to need him. And I think he'll be okay.
Seems like he's right on track. So staying on the defensive line, Jalyx Hunt. It seems that they could be talk, but at least right now they seem like they expect him to really break out this season. Is that what it's looking like when you're watching practice? Is he splashing or is he playing good ball?
From what I've heard in terms of him picking stuff up, from what I've heard about some of these practices and everything, I think he's doing all right. He's doing all right, and he was ahead of schedule to begin with. Last year
Yes.
he wasn't supposed to
Oh
play.
my God! Yeah, I didn't expect to see him at all.
He wasn't
And then
supposed
he's
to play.
making plays in the Super Bowl.
Thank you, Bryce Huff. So, because you didn't have Bryce Huff and he was
He
out.
was dressed nice. Bryce was dressed nicely for the Super Bowl. He had a
Yeah.
different outfit on.
He was seething
all
too.
expected.
I know he was seething. He was seething. But you look at the way that he's an instrumental part. I still want to see him do well in terms of coming up with another pass rush move. I still want to see him take on some of these in the run game, get his shoulder lower a little bit more inside those tackles because he's giving up about 40, 50 pounds to some of these tackles now. But he's still solid. He's got a solid base. I like the way he can give you to this because he knows how to play on the edge. He played safety, so and when you see with Vic, sometimes those guys have to go split out. Well, you got a guy who used to play safety a couple of years ago, feel enough comfortable enough. Not asking him to do that every single time, but in every game. But if you need him to go 2-3 and play that zone toward the outside, toward the sideline, the curl flat areas, I'm okay with that. 2 or 3 times. That's about it. I like that part. He just it's all about consistency with him. Make sure you consistently play the run, consistently get a good pass rush, and not let these guys maul you down and get on the inside of them. Because that was the only thing I saw when he first started, before he really started to take off toward the second guy. He was letting these offensive linemen get inside of his pads and they control it. Once you give up that inside, you're in because it's not called holding if you can get the inside under where the shoulder pads are on those little straps. They control you like a puppet.
You gotta get the hands off you. You gotta get those.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why so many guys do jujitsu and all that stuff, because when they do quick and do all that stuff, they count. A lot of these guys go to mixed martial arts to learn that stuff. And the Eagles bring in the guy once a year that teach them just certain hand moves as well too. So they got that. I wish I knew who the guy was. But that's that. I think Hunt is swell. Now, will he get 10 sacks like Sweat? Probably not. Not early on. I don't foresee that for him right now. I've seen that for Nolan Smith. Hunt, I can see in the range of like 6 or 7-ish, which is all right. But you need your
6,
other guys.
7's fine because it's a whole unit. You may get 6, 7 from Hunt, Carter, 1 or 2 from Ty. A couple from Jumbo. 10, 12 from Nolan Smith.
You need Ojulari or Uche, one of those guys, because I think you need 4 of them. You really need 4 legit edge rushers. And I got Smith. I'm counting Ojulari if he's healthy. That's the thing. If he's healthy, he stays in the field. I got Ojulari. And I got Hunt as a half because I want to see him do it for a whole season and work on those things I talked about earlier. But yeah, that's to me the edge rusher thing. I'm concerned about that position long term this season. So I hope they prove me wrong. I hope.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying Uche's the one. I'm like, I don't know if Uche makes the team.
That's what I was literally just about to say, Chris. That's literally what I was about to say. I'm like, he's my preseason, pre-training camp pick to not even make the team. But hope you go get 20 sacks, and I will eat these words. I'll clip it up myself and cook myself, Uche, if you go and do it.
I would not be surprised if the 4th edge rusher is on another roster right now.
Yeah.
I would not. Maybe one of those late trades where, hey, Josh is not working out. He's only making this much. Hey, you got another guy you're going to cut. All right. We'll throw in a 7th. We already got 12, 13 projected picks. Yeah, we'll just throw a 7th. Why not? There you go. Just
right.
Take it back. You go from there. But,
right.
Uche got so many questions about one season. He's like Bryce Huff. He lived off one really big season, and
that's right.
Yeah.
So is Shipley or AJ Dillon getting most of the second team practice?
Now, I wasn't there for the practices for the most part, but from what I've seen, from what I've heard, is Shipley. Shipley's been used a lot. From what I've heard and talked to other people, they see him really big as a passing game guy, sort of what Gainwell was.
Ooh,
like when you're losing that one too, like Saquon's going to be a 3-down back for the most part, but if you need a guy to spell it right now,
yes.
And the thing is, like we were talking about Uche, Dillon's another guy I think you need to watch for if he makes his roster or not. Because Bryce Harper, he's another guy that look. They got a lot of running backs. Some
Yeah,
of
he
them
got a
are not.
stinger. I don't like the stinger. The stinger. I don't.
That's one reason too. I just think he's a more physical back end. It builds up. He reminds me of Jordan Howard toward the end of Jordan Howard's tenure here, and that's
Good
for
Jordan Howard here. Oh, because Jordan Howard
toward
had
the end.
a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, he had a lot of touchdowns when they needed him, but like after a while, it was like you saw him like that next year. He came back before they cut it. It's like, no, we can't do that.
Slow.
He's probably long, averaging maybe 2 yards, 3 yard carry. Now behind this offensive line, could I see him getting 3 yards a carry? Yeah, okay. But I think part of me is thinking like, and this is off to this is my personal. I have no this is all speculative. This is no insight around.
Yeah, it's not reporting this, just some perspective. Yeah.
It's perspective. Part of me wondered if they were really building up for a lot of these big plotting running backs in case the tush push wasn't passed. Because we know they got Summers a fullback. You got him back there.
Yeah.
He's not gonna play a lot.
Van Schumer. Oh yeah. 43 now.
Yeah. I was like, okay, another guy I'm watching because he isn't any. So you got him, and you got Dillon. Like there's a couple other guys looking about Ross may get a shot, and I wouldn't be surprised if Dillon playing. I wouldn't be surprised if Dillon's playing the last preseason game. I think it's at that point where you need to really see that. Could he be useful? Yeah. Would he want to be one of those veteran back? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he is or not. Because I think he's been 5 years, bro. I think he has enough time where if he signs, he's guaranteed. And I don't know if you want that. He adds some better experience because that room, but you don't really need it because you got Barkley. He's a good. If you ever lose Barkley for a significant amount of time,
nobody's gonna be satisfied with AJ Dillon. Playing
Shipley would be
12 games.
your one. Right. Yeah. Right. Shipley would be your one. Then I can see you get Dillon if you want to use him for the stuff yards in the middle.
That means Jalen Hurts is throwing the ball 40 times.
We're going back to the old whistle on the Andy Reid 2-back split backs and just running that one too. I think we would see something like that. But
8 tight end screens to Dallas Goedert.
and we'll
3
definitely hear
to Devontae.
And we'll hear the thing. I bet you if that ever happens, we'll hear the thing. Well, the wide receiver screen is an extension of our run game. So that sentence will be used so many times if that ever happens.
Say it, Chris.
Well, the wide receiver screens are an extension of our run game. So we use those plays and out there. And we have the like that. So you gotta hope Saquon stays healthy because the other options. Yeah, I think they have a few young guys. In fact, they claimed a running back again. I know he used 5'6", and because Barkley's not going to be doing a lot was not doing a lot during all season. You want to keep him fresh, and Shipley's the main guy after that. You want to keep him fresh eventually. But I'm watching Dillon, and that's the guy I'm like, I'd have him on watch just with Uche.
I'm glad you said that because I've been feeling crazy. The folks I've been talking to have been feeling good about AJ Dillon. I'm glad somebody else is on watch with this. I would have been very much. I always like picking a running back 4th round, 3rd, 4th round. I'd have been in the lookout. I mean, I wouldn't have gone all the way up for like an Amari on Hampton or somebody like that. But somebody from, like a Kenny Gamble. That's how they got Gamble out of Memphis. 3rd, 4th round. So something like that this year would have been a good.
Yeah, high production. You look, especially those late rounds. Somebody just had high production and has a really good skill at doing something. Like, is it somebody who would have been a good kick or punt returner who could help you as a 30-out rep or help you
That's
that's that type of guy? I can see that. Yeah, but they really some of those guys they had. The thing like Terry, I'm blanking right now, but they had some guys that they were really they were high on. They kept bringing back. They made sure to keep in the practice squad. They kept circling back. They had to free it. There's a couple guys, and then the fact they claimed somebody.
Oh, right. Yes. Tryon Davis.
I keep Bryce. I think it is. That's what I read. Price.
Yeah. Yes.
So they like him. They really legit like him. I think he's.
I like his skill set too.
And so
but
yeah, that's why I'm
kept him off the active roster.
It's a big thing. Dillon might be playing that last preseason game.
Well, it seems that Terrace Marshall is getting well acclimated to the team. Do you see? I guess he would be in line to be that 4th wide receiver, but the Eagles picked Ainias Smith in the draft, do you see Ainias Smith being able in year 2 to pick, or are you seeing this as another practice squad year for Ainias Smith potentially?
For me, at nines, I think he could step up there because the one thing that derailed him early on in his tenure with the Eagles was injury. He was recovering from that fracture they found during the draft process, so he was behind the 8 ball as a rookie. Yeah, that was the first time. Yeah, I remember the first time doing it because I was high on him coming out of college. I'm like, okay, he could be like, this is not inspiring a lot of confidence in this, but I thought he could be like the Tavon Austin where he was a former running back. He's a slot guy. He's a gadget guy. I can see him being that, and he can be a punt return. But he struggled.
He's in the league, folks. Look, everybody doesn't need to be Devontae.
Yeah, they don't need it. They definitely don't need it. They don't need it. But I look at that. I can see him. I can see him doing that, especially in the slot, because the injuries derailed him, and I think he was trying to press a little bit too much. So when he's still when he was already behind the 8 ball, rookie year, you're pressing too much. Then he wasn't country. He had a few drops, and not only in the receiving thing, but also during some practices when it came to catching punts. So you had that on top of that, and it was I think it's a snowball until finally I think when he felt comfortable, it was like
too late.
Oh, yeah, it was too late on that one too. But when the draft was like, okay, he can do this. He can do this. This is why I think this offseason was key. Like we saw that video with him with AJ Brown training with him. To have him learn like from a vet like that, learn what takes that one too. You already know he's got a good skill set. He's quick. He's agile in the box and do some stuff in space. Just let him learn position more, and NFL knows he can concentrate on working throughout this offseason instead of having to worry about rehab though. I think you'll see a marketed difference when training camp starts between what we saw last year to what we saw this year with Smith. I mean, Marshall's a good player. He really is, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if he's the 4th or 5th receiver this year. We're not thinking. I think he can add some self value to him.
Keep him around in case you need to run that jet sweep we were talking about out of the slot.
I can't. All you need to do is get the linebackers to look 1 or 2 steps forward that way too.
Yeah.
Because by the time you're like, okay, shit. Oh wait, no.
Yeah.
I know you have the oblique screens. You have the oblique runs where you just have something where you have Smith going this way.
Yeah.
And then by the time you got Landon
Shipley going the other way or whatever.
Yep. They're at the second level when you're like, and there's a seam. So just use it all about eye candy. If he becomes a threat that way, it's another weapon that's focused.
Chris, it's always great getting to talk ball with you. You always bring a perspective from being in the locker room, from actually knowing ball, the X's and O's. It's always a good time talking with you about ball and other things. But on the show, we talk ball. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for listening through the segments with Frank Klose from ESPN 97.3 ESPN and Bryan Toporek from Forbes. Great segments. Ended off here with Chris. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back soon. Peace.
We're focused on our process and how we get better every single day. And if your process is right, then it gives you the best chance to win. It doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna win, but it gives you the best chance to win. And so our goal is just to focus and it's to focus on where we are at this particular moment, to put the work in, to overcome the adversity, and the rest will take care of itself.
We gotta get to practice. Everybody.